Good morning, friends. Oxidation number. In my last video, I explained you and defined you oxidation number, and also I explained you different conditions of the oxidation number. Today, I will give you more information regarding the oxidation number of the atoms and the ions, and also how to calculate the oxidation number of an atom in a compound or in the case of the ions. You see, oxidation number, actually if we say in the case of the molecules and in the case of the ions, it depends upon the electronegativity. More the electronegative atoms, they have oxidation number as a negative, while the less electronegative atoms, they have the oxidation number in the form of the plus. Now, I will take today oxidation number of the oxygen. Say, oxidation number of the oxygen is generally -2, but exceptions are there. See, in the case of the peroxides and the superperoxides, if we talk about the oxidation number of the oxygen as such, it is -2. Now, if we take example of the peroxide, that is H2O2 and is Na2O2, and in the case of superoxide, that is potassium dioxide. Now, in the case of the peroxides and the superperoxide, it was found that the oxygen atom directly linked to each other. So, in the case of the H2O2, that is peroxide, oxygen number of the oxygen is -1, and in the case of the superoxide, that is potassium dioxide, oxygen number is -1/2. So the important thing is the electronegativity, mind it, and always learn about the electronegativity. More the electronegativity of the atom, it is oxygen number is minus, and less the electronegativity of the atom, its oxygen number is plus. Now this thing we can make clear by taking an example of the OF2. OF2. You know, fluorine is the more electronegative. So in the case of the OF2, oxygen number of the oxygen becomes +2, because here in OF2 fluorine is more electronegative than the oxygen. And if we take the example of the difluoride, here O2F2, here the oxygen number of the oxygen becomes +1. So in the case of the OF2 and O2F2, where fluorine is more electronegative than the oxygen, then the oxygen number of oxygen in OF2 is +2, while in the case of the O2F2, it becomes +1. Now the very interesting thing in the case of the halogens, you see, fluorine is more electronegative than the chlorine, bromine and then iodine. In the cases of the halogens compounds, for example, if we take the example of the HI, here iodine is more electronegative than the hydrogen, then the oxygen number of the iodine is -1. Now, if we take the example of the IF5, where iodine is now less electronegative than the fluorine, then the oxygen number of the iodine will be +5. And in the case of the IF7, where iodine is less electronegative than the fluorine, the oxygen number of iodine becomes plus 7. So the point is that it depends upon the electronegativity. Now, what happened for the neutral molecules and the complex ions? Neutral molecules means when sum of the oxygen number of all the atoms is equal to 0. Neutral molecule means when the sum of the oxygen number of all the atoms in an ion or a compound is equal to 0, that is the neutral molecule. For example, in the case of the ammonia NH3, the total number of the oxygen number of the nitrogen and hydrogen is equal to 0. Now in the case of the complex ion, where charge is there, sum of the oxygen number of all the atom is equal to the charge of the ion. Listen, for complex ion, for example sulfate, whose charge is -2, here sum of the oxygen number of all the atoms is equal to the charge of the ions. If we take the example of the sulfate ion, that is -2, then the sum of the total number of the oxygen number of this S and O is equal to -2. So this is all about the oxygen number. So point is to be remembered that the electronegativity of the atoms. Now here I will explain you some examples how to calculate the oxygen number. First example, if we take hydrogen sulfide, that is H2S. Now this compound we have to determine the oxygen number of the sulfur. How to write? How to calculate? First write the atoms, hydrogen and sulfur. Oxygen number of the hydrogen is +1 and the oxygen number of the sulfur is to be determined. Let it be X. Then the two atoms of the hydrogen, it means oxygen number is 1 into 2 plus X is equal to 0. Here neutral molecules, sum of the oxygen number of all the atoms is equal to 0. So is equal to 0, then 2 plus X is equal to 0, then X is equal to -2. So here the sulfur atom has the oxygen number is -2. Now take the example of the sulfate ion. Its charge is -2. Now we have to determine the oxygen number of the sulfur, that is X. Sulfur X. Oxygen has oxygen number -2 into 4 atoms. Here listen, complex ion, the sum of the oxygen number of all the atoms is equal to the charge of the ions. Here charge of the ion is -2. So equation is X minus 8 is equal to -2. So X is equal to -2 plus 8, that is +6. So here oxygen number of this sulfur is +6. Now we take the example of the H2SO3, that is sulfurous acid. Oxygen number of the hydrogen is 1 into 2 plus sulfur is X, and the O3, that is oxygen number is 2, then -2 into 3, then 2 plus X -6 is equal to 0, then X is equal to 6 minus 2, that is +4. So in the case of the H2SO3, oxygen number is +4. And one more example if we take, that is Na2S2O3. It is a neutral molecule, so it will be equal to 0. Now the oxygen number of the sodium is 1 into 2 plus sulfur is X, 2 into X, oxygen 3 atoms, and the oxygen number of the oxygen is minus 2. So 2 plus 2x minus 6. So 2x is equal to 6 minus 2, that is plus 4. Then x is equal to 4 upon 2, that is plus 2. So here oxygen number of the sulfur become plus 2. So this is all about the oxygen number. So I think it will be clear to you how to calculate the oxygen number. The important thing is that you have to remember the electronegativity. If atom is more electronegative, oxygen number is negative, and if electronegativity is less, oxygenation number will be plus, and for the neutral molecules it is equal to 0, and for the complex ions sum of the oxygen number of all the atom is equal to the charge of the ion. Okay, so go through it properly and understand the oxygen number. I think it will be clear to you. If you like my videos, please share and subscribe. Thanks very much.